There's some basic truths that we have to know, but we have to accept also. And that's what it takes to build that foundation. Because I'll guarantee you, folks, if you don't know this foundation, and more importantly, if you don't accept it, chances are very, very high that you will leave your faith. And remember, the second largest church group in the United States are fallen away Catholics. I will bet you $1,000 that if you look at fallen away Catholics, I'll bet you $1,000 this part of their faith was a faulty foundation. Just remember what I said last week. If a Catholic really knew his or her faith, he or she would never leave the faith. And if a non-Catholic really knew what the Catholic Church taught, they would be beating the doors to come down. But you've got to have this. Because without this... Shall I just be bold here and just let it rip? Oh, what the heck.
We love it.
This is Vic speaking here, okay? My personal opinion. When we teach our children the faith, we look at statistics. And it's a really disturbing statistic. These young men and women, if you want to call them that are confirmed. How many of them stay with the faith? 1 year? 5 years later? I've seen some disturbing facts. Do you know what they are offhand? It's incredible. You see these huge people getting confirmed. Was it 2 years ago? We had Sacred Heart and St. Pius here. And sometimes I look in the church and I look around. Where are they? Something is wrong. And this is my personal opinion. I personally believe if a young person, or let me just change, a baby Christian, whatever age you are, whether you're this big or that big, 10 years or 70 years old, you've got to have this first. I'm not going to say you're wasting your time learning some of the other components of our faith. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying without having this, when you learn about sacraments, when you learn about liturgy, if you don't know who Jesus Christ is, what He did for us by dying on the cross and rising, is the Eucharist going to mean that much to you? Think about it. So, as you can tell, I'm kind of passionate about this. And this is one of my, I've been felt called to do this, is to proclaim the gospel message. Because from what I've seen, so few people know it and accept it. That evangelization is one of my key ministries I feel called to. Because I think, personally, if we could light this fire under the Catholic Church to get people excited about Christ, on what He did. Sometimes you go to church, this is all personal commentary, okay? Sometimes you go to church and people are just kind of bored. You ever hear some people going, I go to Mass and it's boring? You ever hear that?
Oh, yeah.
Do you realize if you understood what was going on, it wouldn't be boring, folks. You'd want it to last 3 hours instead of 45 minutes sometimes. That's what does it. I'll get off my soapbox here. I can get carried away.
Vic, can I say something? When Lynn and I passed out these things, going door to door and knocked on, I was offering this CD on the Mass, and I'd say, here's a CD on the Mass I think you really enjoy. It's beautiful. Oh, okay. But then I said to him, changed my little tune a little bit, and I said, here's a CD. It's really interesting to hear how Justin Martin explained the Mass to the Roman Emperor in 125 AD, exactly as we had it today.
Really?
They almost reached for it.
Amazing.
Isn't it awesome? If you haven't heard Father Larry Richards' CD on the Mass, you've got to get that one. Do you have it out there, Vic?
I think there's some in the rack out
Good.
there.
You've got to get that one.
So, well, hopefully I whet your appetite. Next week we're going to dig into, there's a couple components that consist of the gospel message, and we're going to let the Bible explain this to us. We're just going to go through step by step, and this is so cool, understanding about Christ and what He did for us. So that's next week. How many of you were at my class last night? Can you bear the same joke?
Absolutely.
Okay. We all know the Pope arrived the other day at Andrews Air Force Base, right? Did you watch that on TV?
Yeah.
And President Bush even came out to greet him. Do you know what was unique about this? What's that? No. What's the significance of George Bush meeting a dignitary at Andrews Air Force Base?
Church and state.
It acknowledges his authority.
Well, yeah.
It's the very first time we ever did.
This is the first time in George Bush's presidency he's ever gone to Edwards Air Force Base to welcome a dignitary. Isn't that something? You know, even non-Catholics appreciate and respect the office that the Pope holds. So that's kind of neat. But then, you know, the Pope landed. And, you know, he talked to George Bush a little bit. And then the Pope had to leave and go where he's staying the night. And there's a limousine driver waiting for him. So the limousine driver packed all his bags into the limo. But the Pope was standing on the curbside. And the driver said, "Come on in, Your Eminency, let's get going." And the Pope says, "You know what? All the time I live in the Vatican, they never let me drive. Would it be possible to drive the limo?" The driver says, "My gosh, I'll get in a lot of trouble if I allow you to do that." The Pope pleaded and pleaded, and the driver said, "Okay." So the driver sat in the back seat, and the Pope got in the front seat. And they just left Edwards Air Force Base, and then the Pope floored it. And he accelerated the limo to 105 miles an hour. And he started screaming down the highway. And you know what's going to happen next, right? There were sirens. So the cop pulls over the limo, and he walks up and looks into the driver's window, and he turns right around and goes back to his motorcycle, and he gets on his radio, and he says, "Can I talk to the chief?" The chief gets on. "Chief, I've just caught a person going 105 miles an hour in this limo." The chief said, "Bust him." And the cop says, "Well, I don't know if we want to do that. We've got an important person here in this limo." And the chief said, "All the more. Bust him." And the cop says, "I don't know if we want to do that, Chief. We've got a really, really important person in this limo." And the chief said, "Who do you got? The mayor?" The cop said, "No." "You got the governor?" "No." "Who do you have?" "I got a person more important than that." The chief asked, "Well, who do you have?" The cop says, "I think I've got God." And the chief says, "Well, how do you know?" "Because the Pope is his limo driver." I had to get a joke on the Pope, okay? In honor of the Pope.